The Steam Awards 2025 results are in, and in this video I'm gonna be checking how pretty much almost every game actually runs on the Steam Deck. I'm going category by category. I'm going to briefly talk about what each game is, how it performs on the Steam Deck, and what you can expect in terms of performance and battery life. Without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to start with the big one, Game of the Year, and it goes to Hollow Knight Silksong, which also picked up the Best Game You Suck At award. Silksong is a precision-focused Metroidvania built around fast combat, tricky platforming, and learning enemy patterns through repetition. It's tough, it's demanding, and it's incredibly satisfying once it clicks. It also looks amazing. On the Steam Deck, this game is basically flawless. It holds a locked 60 FPS on the LCD or 90 FPS on the OLED at max settings, and it feels perfect. Battery life on the Steam Deck OLED sits at around 6 to 7 hours depending on brightness. The game is extremely lightweight, the controls are very tight, and it just feels like it was made to be played on a handheld, and I think it's an absolutely must play for everyone. Next up is VR Game of the Year, The Midnight Walk. I'm gonna be skipping this one for now. This award is specifically about pushing VR forward, and the Steam Deck just isn't the right way to experience that. Maybe we're gonna be revisiting this once something like the Steam Frame comes out, but for now, we just gotta move on. Labor of Love goes to Baldur's Gate 3. This is a massive story-driven RPG based on Dungeons & Dragons with turn-based combat, deep builds, and an insane amount of player choice and story. On the Steam Deck, this is a very much a 30 FPS experience. The best setup is low to medium settings with FSR set to quality and a hard 30 FPS lock through SteamOS. The developers recently released a native Linux version that does improve performance, and in Acts 1 and 2 you can most of the time reach 30 FPS, but in Act 3 you can still find yourself dipping below 30 FPS, especially in busy city areas. However, you can absolutely play through the full game on the Steam Deck. Battery life on the OLED averages at around 2 to 2.5 hours depending on scene complexity, and this one absolutely needs some compromise, but it's still very playable, and it's impressive that you can play this on a handheld. The Best Game on Steam Deck award goes to Hades 2. Hades 2 is a fast-paced roguelike built around short runs, tight combat, constant progression. It's basically perfect for handheld play, and I guess that's why it got this award. On the Steam Deck, it runs at locked 60 or 90 FPS. With the default settings, you can even drop the TDP slightly and still hold that frame rate. Battery life on the OLED lands at around 5 to 6 hours, which is pretty excellent for this type of game, and this is great on Steam Deck, no question about it. I would absolutely recommend this to anybody asking what game they should play on the Steam Deck. The Better with Friends award goes to Peak. Peak is a co-op climbing and traversal game built around teamwork, mistakes, and chaotic problem solving. You can play this game solo, but it is much better with friends. On Steam Deck, Peak runs best with medium settings and a 60 FPS cap. You may see the occasional drops into the low 50s during busy moments, but for the most part it will run pretty fine. Battery life on the OLED is around 3 hours. This game really is great, but with friends. While you can play it solo and you can play it offline, it really is recommended that you play this game with your friends. Outstanding visual style goes to Silent Hill F. This is a slow, atmospheric horror game that leans heavily on art direction and mood rather than fast action, and it absolutely deserves this award. On the Steam Deck, the realistic target is 30 FPS. I played it when it came out, and I have a review for it. I'll link in the description. Low settings with FSR set to balanced and a 30 FPS lock deliver the most stable experience, and trying to push it higher just isn't worth it. Battery life on the OLED Steam Deck is around 2.5 hours, and this one needs compromise, but it still works really well for the type of game that it is. Most innovative gameplay goes to Arc Raiders. This is a competitive extraction shooter focused on tense encounters, positioning, and risk versus reward gameplay. I personally don't agree that this game should win most innovative gameplay. I think there's other games more deserving of it, but this is what the community decided and we're going with it. Now, people do play Arc Raiders on Steam Deck. It doesn't run super great. With low settings and FSR set to balanced in a 40 FPS lock, it is playable, but this is a heavy game, and not only heavy, it is a competitive shooter, so you're putting yourself at a disadvantage by playing it on the Steam Deck. But as I said, there's plenty of people that enjoy it on the Steam Deck, so maybe you can too. Battery life on the OLED is roughly 2 to 2.5 hours. I personally don't recommend it on the Steam Deck. It's too competitive for me to enjoy in handheld variant. I really didn't get into it in general. If you're serious about this game and you want to grind a couple of sessions, you can absolutely do that on the Steam Deck, but again, not recommended. Best soundtrack goes to Claire Obscure Expedition 33, absolutely deserving of it. This game's soundtrack is straight fire. This is a turn-based RPG focused on atmosphere, presentation, very nice storytelling and music, with combat that rewards timing and planning. It was recently Steam Deck verified and performance is noticeably better now. However, the best experience is low to medium settings with TSR enabled and a 30 FPS lock. You can push it past 30 FPS in some areas, however, it's just more consistent to lock it to 30 FPS. Battery life on the OLED at 30 FPS averages around 3 hours, and this game lands between fine and great depending on how you feel about 30 FPS. Outstanding story-rich game goes to Dispatch. Dispatch is a narrative-driven experience focused on dialogue, choices, and character interaction rather than action. Think of it like an interactive TV series. On a Steam Deck, it runs at locked 60 FPS on default settings. However, the actual game and the cutscenes in it are mostly rendered at 30 FPS, so you can set it to 30 FPS to get some more battery life out of it. And speaking of battery life on the OLED, it's excellent, sitting at around 6 to 7 hours. I think this is a great game on Steam Deck, and it's one of the easiest recommendations on the list. And finally, Sit Back and Relax goes to Are We There Yet? Are We There is a co-op focused game built around shared experiences and group problem solving. You and up to 3 friends have to drive an RV through a very treacherous terrain, and you have to get home, and there's going to be a lot of challenges along the way. There are 2 important things to know about this game on Steam Deck. You cannot play it solo, and you cannot play it offline. You are going to need friends if you want to finish the game. 4 players really is the right number. It's just some elements and some gameplay to this game that you can't really do alone. And on Steam Deck, performance is pretty solid. It used to be a bit janky, however, they recently did a big patch, and now you can run it at low to medium settings. I think it's best to lock it to 40 or 45 FPS, keeping things smooth, even during chaotic moments. And battery life on the OLED is around 2.5 hours. With the right group, this is great on Steam Deck, however, without friends, it simply doesn't work. So that's it, that's every Steam Awards 2025 winner, except for the VR one and how they actually perform on Steam Deck. Some of these games are perfect for handheld, some of them need some compromises, and few really depend on how you plan to play them and if you have the friends to play them with. If you guys enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like, subscribe for more Steam and Steam Deck content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.